Thanks to those joining me live and to those that'll be joining me on archive. I'm being joined by Stormy B Man. What's going on, bro?
Hey man, what's going on with you, man? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely glad to have you on. You guys can catch Stormy B Man here on YouTube. Go ahead and check him out, man. Talk to us about what's going on with your channel.
Oh man, the channel's doing very well. I've added more post-fight shows where I can get a chance to talk to everybody with my thoughts and take on the action that transpires. And that seems to be coming along quite successfully. The numbers are growing for viewership on that. And we have made a comeback with the Three Wise Men of Boxing, featuring myself, Scrapbook Boxing, and Kurt Sugar. The show airs every other Saturday, 10 a.m. Central. And in between those Saturdays is the In the Eye of the Storm show. So my days are filling up pretty good. So everything is looking up. And there were a lot of people asking about that show, and we decided, as collectively as a group, to give the people what they want, bring it back. So we had initially done 6 episodes. So now with the comeback show, that's number 7, and now we're back and we're rolling.
There you go. Make sure you guys check that out. And right now you're tuning in to the February 10th edition of Aftermath, Weekend Aftermath. And we're being joined by Stormy B-Man again. There was some of the zone fights, man. Morero versus Kid Gallahan. Really quick, I did not get to watch this fight myself. How did that fight go down, man?
Well, the way I saw it, it was a complete, it was a complete hometown situation for Kid Galahad, but Morero, who had also fought a really tough and tight fight against King Tug, who we saw this weekend, but he lost against King Tug. He seemed to be taken out of his comfort zone early with some tactics that Kid Galahad was pulling on him. Galahad was using elbows, he was using his gloves, raking the face, he was being rough and tumble in there. And though the ref was giving him warnings, he wasn't nowhere near taking a point, which a point or two could have been taken in that fight for what he was doing. Yeah. And it really troubled Morero a lot. By round 2, he came out and he was trying to fight angrily, like I'm mad at what you're doing to me, instead of competing with the situation, raising his level of boxing, because he can box pretty decently, but he was totally mentally taken out of this situation. And as Kid Galahad was going about his business, at the end of rounds, he'd stick his glove out to touch gloves, like, we cool, right? And then he'd come back out the next round and continue to rough the guy up and throw elbows. It was hilarious because psychologically you could see Morero's breaking down. And ultimately he ended stopping on his stool at the end of the 8th. He didn't come out for the 9th. And it was sheer frustration. It wasn't like he got beaten up bad. He got hit with some shots pretty good, but that was because he was no longer focused. He was like thinking about other things. And as I remarked, it reminded me a lot of the fight with Donald Curry and Lloyd Hunnigan. And it was just, which I had just revisited recently. And it was something that it shows you live long enough, you see history repeat itself.
Oh, there you go, man. That sounds like I do remember Kid Gallahan, though. His fight with Warrington. Remember that fight?
Yeah.
I thought he got shafted in that fight. But
yeah, a lot of people felt that way, and it's not like he can't fight. It's just that he has guile. It's like some guys, they learn things on top of their boxing ability how to impose themselves in fights. And if the ref is going to allow you to do things, you don't stop and say, well, oh, I shouldn't do this. You take all full advantage of what you can. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, in one instance, and this was like in the second or third round, he had Morero against the ropes. He pushed his head back like this and just completely raked his glove across his face, and then put an elbow in his jaw like that, then came back with like a left hook. I was like, man, this guy, street fighter, you know, but the ref let him get away with stuff. He'll say, hey, don't do that, you know, do that. And then they go back to doing it again. It was hilarious.
That's something, man. I do wish we could see that fight again. Although Warrington, I want to see him fight Shakur Stevenson. Looks like that fight fell off in negotiations, but we'll see where that one goes. But I've always felt like Warrington, I just think he's going to have a lot of problems with a lot of guys. But hey, Cal Brook KO'd Mark DeLuca. All right, this was a 7th round knockout. He knocked him down in the 3rd. It was a nice right hand followed by left, and he hit him with 2 more punches on his way down. Missed the uppercut going down. DeLuca got back up. I do like the way Cal Brook boxes. Like, I think people forget that the dude's not that bad of a boxer at all. Like, he's pretty good. Put his punches together very well. Nice stiff jab. He actually won the fight with a jab in the end. I think that was mostly due to the guy just being exhausted and being worn down. But I like the way he places his uppercut. Nowadays, you see a lot of guys that lead with uppercuts a lot because they think they see an opening and they leave themselves open. Cal Brook usually only throws the uppercut when the guys are like covering up. He's trying to get down the pipe. Very smart in that sense. He didn't look good in the weigh-in, but I understand this is only Mark DeLuca. It's not like he beat one of the world-class guys or top-level guys, I should say. But a win is a win. That does mean it helps his confidence a little bit. And all that, and he did win again with the 7th round knockout. Before I get your thoughts on this, Stormy, let me just go ahead and read over some of these comments here. John is in the chat. What's going on? 92 AKU. He's surprised King Tug didn't shoot his load early. Marcus Johnson says salute. Boxing conversations on here, and so is Alex T. Chief Funky 84 saying what's up to D Style and Stormy B-Man and the chat as well. AJ10, what's good, everyone? Residential fact checker in the house. I can't wait for the Wilder fight coming soon. Chief Funky 84, shouting out AJ10, of course. Teresa D says, salute D-Style and Stormy. And a chat. And AJ10, someone hit the dislike early. Must have been a Warrington fan. I think they heard, well, what do you mean Kid Gallan won? You know? Or maybe it was a mistake. Double check your likes and dislikes, guys. AJ10 says, wow, yeah, that's for sure. And you're on the two Stormy doing double duty. And G-Funk84 says, jab the like button. Absolutely. Okay. What did you think of the fight? And also segues into what do you think should be next for Cal Brook as well?
Well, I think that at 147, Brook was a very strong fighter. He seems to have taken the size up to 154 because I think that's where they were fighting. But I don't know if the power is there. I think he's a strong man physically, you know. But what's interesting, you made a great point about his boxing ability. He's not a physical boxer, even though he's a very strong man. And that could serve him some injustice if not being physical, because I believe with the skills that he has, if he were more of a physical guy, he could do certain things and wear opponents down and make fights easier for himself. I think that this fight with DeLuca, they have a history of having sparred with one another and in, sparring, preparing one another for various fights, other fights outside of each other. And that familiarity served Cal Brook better because it's obvious that in the fight here, he opened up with stuff that DeLuca didn't know he had, and he took advantage of that. Certain angles that he punched off of, and what I was able to see, particularly the knockdowns looked nice because of how he got those shots in off of angles where, like, there was stuff like coming around from DeLuca. DeLuca was used to things coming straight in, and then he would mix in stuff and then whop, throw that hook in or the right hook, and he caught him that way. But DeLuca was also a guy who wasn't physically up to taking, power punches from an A-class fighter. You have to call Brook a A-class fighter. He wasn't accustomed to that. You could probably say DeLuca was like a B, maybe B- class fighter, but he hadn't had anybody like Brook, in a live action, and he wore him down. He wore him down. But it would have been very interesting to see someone of A class offering resistance and the proper type of resistance that we recognize in championship quality fights to Brook at this stage, because, as he's being an aging guy, we would really like to see what he has. He could get away with this against DeLuca, but he won't be able to get away with it with some of the other top fighters at the division, and he's looking to get in there against. But what I think should be next for him, he should go into a fight with someone on the PBC side of things. I don't think that Eddie Hearn has handled his career very well. If there was some way that he could get out and get one of those opposite deals where he could take a fight, one off, on that PBC side to get one of those fighters so he can get a good look-see, he could get on television. So people will look and say, oh, I want to see him against so-and-so, but I think that has to happen for him. And maybe it would be in the cards that Hearn would let it happen, because outside of that, he's very inactive, and so we need to see him, and the clock is ticking. He can make 2020 a year for him to try to make moves. He's got one fight in the early part of the year. He can try to do something by late spring, early summer, and then something again later in the year. He needs to keep that going for himself if he wants to be in contention. And at that 154, there's plenty of meat up there. So, I would love to see him in there against someone. Maybe a fight between he and Rosario, but I don't think that Rosario is going to hold those belts for long. Not because I think that J-Rock is coming back to get him necessarily, but because at that class, that division, that title is going to change hands a few times. That's how good the competition is there. So, Kell Brook, throw your hat in the fire. Let's see it.
I definitely agree with that. Shout out to BFTV, says Cook Kings, and shout out to Kelly Enigma. A-Rod 83, what's going on? It says, why not a rematch with Porter would be nice. Well, that's if Brook could make 147 pounds. Did you guys see him at the weigh-in? This is at 154 pounds. I don't know. You know what I mean? Amir Khan, Kell Brooks overdue. I mean, Khan went up to fight Canelo at, like, what was it, 155, 156? But I don't know. Am I in the minority here? I just don't want to see that fight. But do you want to see that fight, Stormy?
No, I think that fight has that ship has sailed. They had a chance to do that realistically like 3 years ago when it would have been the right time for both of them.
Right.
And they just allowed it to pass, man. And what's interesting is that you don't even understand why. That fight could have been so big over there. They could have made millions. That money that Amir Khan got for fighting Bud Crawford, he probably would have made more than that fighting Kell Brook. And, less of a threat, really, because I think that those two guys are at that level where they should have been facing one another. And it reminds me, here I go with that history stuff, right? But it reminds me of like when Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis didn't fight each other after the 88 Olympics. It's like that was the hottest fight in the heavyweight division after they turned pro, even when they weren't champions yet. people were like, we want to see these two dinosaurs go at it, because they were the big guys, 6'5", 230 plus pounds, big reach, you know, fast hands, mobility. They were like mirrors of one another, and they never
top of the
fought.
food chain. Yeah.
Yeah, and they never and they both became champion during their era. One had a little bit of a longer run, being Lewis, but my thoughts on those two guys would have been like, had they ever fought one another when they were supposed to, the winner of that fight would have ruled their generation, ruled that decade. And we were robbed of that. So Amir Khan and Kell Brook have done the same thing albeit a lighter division, to one another in their own country. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a mega fight. BTV says they both would have made more money fighting each other than anybody else not named Floyd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That probably would have made Floyd fight one of them had they fought each other, and one of them had a great victory, because it's not it's to me it's a toss-up who would have won between them.
Yeah. Yeah, it also reminds another British fight. The name of the fighter escapes me. I know you remember, because Rick Adam was a big name in England, and the guy that Bradley beat, what's his name again?
From the UK.
From the UK, yeah. Bradley beat him for the title. Then he kind of.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the guy's name right now.
His name escapes me at the moment. Okay,
let's have our fact check guy look that up.
Yeah. We need to fact check. We need it now. We need it quick. All right,
Junior Witter.
Junior Witter. No, there we go. Okay, so Junior Witter. So Junior Witter, Rick Haddon, another fight should have happened. I think Haddon kind of knew what time it was. That's why I think it didn't happen. But you know, nonetheless,
TV says bum number one. That's his name.
well, that's that. So. Kell Brook, look, I'm ruling out 147. Unless, look, I'm not against it per se. Like if Kell Brook says, God damn it, I'm going to 147 and he wants to do it, that's on him. Okay. But if he moves down and then he gets knocked out, like I think he will, I don't want to hear the excuses. Okay. I told you guys he shouldn't go down, but there's people egging it on, Stormy, like, oh, he could do it right now. Okay. So when he gets knocked out, I don't want to hear it. Because I don't think he beats any dude in the top 5 at welterweight right now.
Well, he did it to himself, because that bouncing around, the inactivity. See, when you're active, making weight is part of what you do. But when you're inactive, you have these extremely long layoffs, and then you have these injuries and other incidents that happen. Because wasn't he stabbed in a knife attack or some crap too? So it's like, when you look at it overall, how much time of his youthful boxing career as a professional had been squandered with all of this foolishness. And the idea that Hearn hung him out to dry to go up against Triple G, which was totally not necessary. At all. It was not necessary. And they can't really say payday, because he didn't make that much fighting Triple G. You understand? He could have made more fighting the champions that were around where he was.
Or Khan.
Or Khan, yeah. Again, here we're back to that. So my thoughts are, he squandered. And you know something? You're witnessing right now another fighter do the exact same thing. And that's Demetrius Andrade. He's doing the exact same thing. Only
we froze there.
Stuff outside the ring, but the inactivity is there.
I hear you, man. Andrade is a lot of it, doing it to himself. Well, we'll see where it goes for Kell Brook. I think ideally for him, he should stay at 154. I do remember he called out Bud at 147, and he kind of never went anywhere with it, And a lot of people were pushing for it, like, yeah, fight him, Bud. Well, nothing really happened, so that's that.
I think he was just trying to put his name out there because some stuff was happening. And if I'm not mistaken, that was around the Bud Amir Khan fight, right? When he was doing that.
Yep.
So, I mean, come on. That reminds me, what is it with these guys over there? Right now, Dillian White and AJ are the most vocal right now because Deontay Wilder has a fight coming up. He's in a camp. He's ready to go sign, getting ready to do his business. And here these guys are squawking like a bird at sunrise. You know what I mean? And it's like when he's like, come Sunday morning, when the fight is over, crickets. You won't hear these guys. They're going to go on vacation. They're going to be out off scene until Wilder says who his next opponent going to be, which is not going to be either one of them. And then they'll come out again. But that's what they do. It's like they wait till someone has a deal going and signed, and here they come. Oh, he's ducking me. He doesn't want to fight and this and that. And it's like, really? It's like, where were you like 2 weeks ago before the fight was announced, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird, that's for sure. But I do want to talk about this, man. All right, a lot. Let's transition to the Showtime fights. I was glad to see Showtime actually have some fights. It seems like Fox gets all the fights, or the Zone, or some. Well, Showtime is out there. They have a budget. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's have them use it. But anyway, Guillermo Rigondeaux, defeated Liborio Solis. And look, I kept hearing all week from boxing scribes and some fans that Guillermo Rigondeaux he's going down in weight. He can't do this. He's going to be up in for a surprise. And he kind of was. But instead of giving his man, who's practically 40 years old, credit for what he did, instead, the boxing media continues a narrative that he's a boring fighter when a dude's literally walking out to the ring. Dude's walking out to the ring, and I'm seeing tweets, all right? Wake me up when it's over, guys. What the fuck is that? And didn't you see his last fight with Ceja? Are you out of your minds? Are you out of your minds? I don't blame him for not fighting like that again. It's not like you're going to give him credit for it, right? Why should he fight like that? Now, granted, I do feel like he tried to fight a different fight, and Solis caught him early with some, and he said, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm just going to go back and do what I do, okay? Like, I'm going to be Rigondeaux, because he respected the guy in front of him. He said, I'm going to do what I do, all right? And Rigondeaux put on, in my opinion, a boxing clinic, right? I don't know what fight Showtime was watching. I have no clue. I was watching the scorecards. I'm like, what? Rigondeaux is landing a variety of beautiful lefts, right? Using his straight to jab, or use it as a rangefinder. He's gauging distance. He ain't getting hit. The replays validate that, right? But he hits this guy like 20 times. This guy hits him one time, and they show the replays of each guy hitting each other once. Right? Like, this is absolutely crazy to me. And not taking anything away from Solis. I think he's a good fighter. He was just outclassed. Rigo looked good here. I think it took him about 2-3 rounds to kind of get settled in and back into this division. I think he looked good. I think he looked phenomenal. I think he put on a boxing clinic. He took Liborio Solis to school. Liborio Solis left that ring with a diploma, bro. Okay, he left it like I got taken to school. All right, that's what happened here. What did you think of the fight, Stormy?
Well, I think that the original and initial plan was for Rigondeaux to come out and try to be exciting again, and immediately Solis's strength. It's funny how you can talk about the strength of fighters as opposed to power, because it's two different things in boxing. They can be paired well, but the agent fighter just like Rigondeaux. But he had enough strength early on to be a dangerous threat to Rigondeaux if he were going to try to fight him on the inside. And like you said, Rigo realized, Oh shoot, because he a couple of times he almost went down. He got hit and shook very solidly, and he went back to the corner and said, "Hey man, I'm from Cuba." He's like, I'm gonna go out here and take this kid to school. I'm not gonna stand in there. And I say kid because he was the elder fighter here. But what I had a real appreciation for was that he had the sensibility to make that adjustment. He didn't let his balls get out in front of him like so many people want fighters to do in a stupid manner where you just put things on the line without using what you have. I can understand for limited fighters, but when fighters have a complete toolbox, which Rigondeaux definitely has, he put that ego in check and brought the boxer back out into the ring. And for those boo birds out there, and I stated this on my own live stream in the post fight, I was like, shame on them, because this man put on a boxing clinic at the age of 40 or whatever he is. And he showed moves and he showed angles. He showed counterpunching that you're not seeing from anybody in the sport right now. You're not seeing it from younger dudes. He put a clinic on that guy. And then when the guy wore down in the later rounds, he began to hit him in a manner which he could have, had he been a couple of years younger, he would have knocked the guy out earlier, But kudos to Rigondeaux for being an intelligent boxing fighter who took this guy to school, gave him angles, made it look easy after he got into his groove. And then he also made Solis gun shy, because a couple of those shots that nailed him really good, he was like, I don't want to run into that anymore. So he was kind of trying to bait Rigondeaux to go back to hey, can we go back and play like we did in the first round? And Rigo was like, no, whop, take this jab and let me put this angle on you. And I love that, because he could fight. If he fights like that, he could fight till he's 45 years old, because he's boxing. Punches aren't landing solidly, punches are skimming, and he's countering well. But shame on those guys who avoided him, didn't give him his fair chance to make his claim in the sport and everything, because he's at the tail end now. And just imagine what we've missed. All of these men who have received accolades and have been showered with praise for doing very little, but he was there. He was the man. And everybody walked away from him. And I have to say it just honestly, there's some kind of stigma against the Cuban fighters, man. And we know that what they have meant through history when you talk about the Olympics and amateurs, and you got guys that have come out of the amateurs and Olympics over the past, let's just say 15 years or whatever, nowhere near that skill level, right? But when they have to face these guys in the pros, they're running from them, and that's a shame, because those fighters deserve chances at world titles too, and we're seeing it in the heavyweight division with Luis King Kong Ortiz. This man could have possibly had a title belt before shot or, someone, what I mean? But here we are. And it's a shame. I don't like to see it. I think it's about discrimination at the end of the day. And it's showing its head tremendously in the pro ranks.
Well, for the I think PBC should put Rigondeaux in Florida, somewhere where there's a big Cuban population, New York probably. But put him in a some ups, like, I mean, just think about how elitist these fans were acting. Okay, there's only like 500 of you in the crowd. Okay, like, chill out. It's not like you're some legion of. It's like a big arena of people. Okay, so a lot of people didn't show up in the middle of this. What is it, Allentown, Pennsylvania? Right. Nothing against Allentown, Pennsylvania, but I have no idea why the fight was there. Okay, they could have put this fight in a million better places. But I mean, I remember when Obama lifted the embargo, and I'm not trying to get into politics, but I kind of thought, hey, this is great if the Cuban boxers could fight in their home country, you know, um, because that's the Puerto Ricans have that luxury, for example. So just about every fighter, these guys are just, they don't have a lot of backing because of the circumstances, and you're right. There is a stigma, and there's people that just don't understand what they're watching. I'm sorry. And it's one thing if you're just a fan. If some random fan just says, "Oh my God, this is boring," okay, fine. But if you call yourself a boxing writer, and if I go down your timeline, you refer to other boxers as master boxers, but you don't want to help. You don't want to say that about Rigondeaux? Are you kidding me? Oh, Tyson Fury. I mean, he's a master boxer. Rigondeaux, poof. Boring. Did you not see Tyson Fury against Vladimir Klitschko? Did you not see that fight? I mean, goddamn. And let me tell you something. Rigondeaux was standing with his hands down, dude. His hands were down. And I'll be honest, I was saying, get your hands up, dude. But he had the audacity to do that. And he was at punching range. Solis did not want to throw. He was like, if I throw, I'm gonna get popped in the mouth. I'm gonna eat that left hand. He dropped this dude. He hurt him multiple times. People are acting like Rigondeaux was doing nothing. Funniest part. Here's the funniest part. A lot of these boxing scribes that were, oh, Rigondeaux, he's so boring, man. That's what they do. One of them actually put, if you enjoyed this fight, just unfollow me now. The fuck? What are you, a child? I can't have my opinion? Someone actually said, if you think this is exciting, you don't know boxing. Nah, bro, you got it the other way around. But here's the funny part. Same dudes tweeting about golf on Sunday. Golf? You get excited about golf. Oh man, this golf is so exciting, bro. Right? They have to whisper. All right, have you not seen golf, bro? Have you ever gone golf? If there's no beer involved, it ain't fun. Okay, it just isn't. Who complains about a Rigondeaux fight where he drops his opponent, is landing beautiful left hands, is basically controlling a professional boxer with ease, and you want to say that's boring, but you turn around, you watch golf. Oh, man, what an unbelievable swing. The fuck out of here. Stormy, what are your thoughts?
One thing I had to add to what you're saying there. We all remember how great a boxer Sweet Pea Whitaker was, right? Yep. Now, back in 97, Whitaker took on Diabeles Hurtado, another Cuban fighter who had a very good amateur career and had become a world champion in the U.S. But at the time when he challenged Sweet Pea Whitaker, who was a welterweight champion at the time and had some stellar victories, he was beating the crap out of Sweet Pea Whitaker, man. He was outboxing him. He was throwing combinations. He was moving. And Sweet Pea had to dig out the old Norfolk Street out of him and take him out in the 12th round, where had that fight gone to a decision, he was going to lose that fight. He was that far out with Whitaker, and Whitaker was noted for winning, in a 12-round fight, he could win 10 rounds easy. He wasn't that 7-5 guy. Whitaker would shut you out after he boxed you 2 rounds or 3 at the tops, because he would figure you out and then make you bend to his will. In other words, his style of fighting. And Diabelli's Hurtado jumped out on a lead on him and was taking rounds with his hand speed, his lateral movement, basically a pro-am style, which Whitaker hadn't fought like that in years. So it's like he was like kind of stunned. But he stopped Hurtado in the 12th round with a devastating knockout where he was bludgeoning this guy with overhand lefts and everything till he beat him through the ropes. A real solid knockout for Whitaker. But I mentioned that fight because here we had another Cuban fighter taking on one of our best U.S. fighters and one of the best from the Olympics, because Sweet Pea won gold. But here you're talking about how good these fighters can really be. And when they show their wares on the world stage in professional boxing, they should be rewarded for their contributions to the sport. And I don't like seeing those type of opportunities being taken away. If they're taken away in the ring where you compete, that's one thing. But these judges and these sanctioning bodies and the steering and allowing people to duck and dodge and move away, that right there, there's something to be said about that. It leaves a very sour taste in the mouth. And you can now see that philosophy is not just spreading from the Cuban fighters, but basically fighters of color, you know, from different parts of the world and everything. And there's this agenda to push other fighters to the forefront and tell us that they're great or whatever. They're robotic, they're not that athletic. And then you're seeing these guys and they don't have true professional pedigree or amateur pedigree that's great enough to compete as a pro. And they're trying to displace the good fighters with those guys. And I mean, there needs to be more of us out here speaking about this and putting it in the face of the public, because the public really, like those who were booing Guillermo fight that night, they're being persuaded.
They were booing him when he was walking out to the ring.
Yeah, but it's the media that does that. The media were talking about how boring he is and everything, and it didn't start this night. It started a while back. And see, now that we have our channels, we have the social media and everything, we can put the spin on that and turn that back around.
I have bad news for the media, right? The traditional boxing media, I have bad news for you guys.
Yeah,
like,
it's
really bad news. Okay, most of you guys, all right, a lot of them were from, you know, I'm not going to mention any names, but it might be very obvious. Okay, there's one guy who was a writer for Sports Illustrated who was writing for the NBA. Sports Illustrated, with their narrative that boxing is dying. By the way, their stupid ass magazine's dying. Okay, that's the only thing that's dying, right? But they didn't want to pay a guy just to write about boxing, so they said, "Hey, do you want to write about boxing?" All right. So their NBA writer, who was never a boxing fan, just started going to boxing fights and writing about it. Okay. A lot of these dudes have not been watching boxing their whole life. Okay. It's dudes that, you know, were doing some journalism for some newspapers that went out of business, old websites that are no longer that big anymore. Right. Like, you know, that's just what it is. And many of them ended up picking up boxing because it was the easiest sport to just jump onto. All right. That's just the reality of things. The ring is not prestigious like it used to be back in the day. All right. If you write for the ring, it doesn't make you special. But put all that aside, I have bad news for the boxing media. You do not speak for boxing fans that have been watching this fucking sport a whole fucking life. You don't speak for us. You don't know more than us. Okay? Point blank, period. So the narrative could easily be changed. But I don't need a narrative. I have my eyes. I can tell you what happened. Guillermo Rigondeaux walked into an arena and beat the bricks off Liborio Solis. He outclassed him to the point where he had his hands down in front of him at punching range, and Solis was too fucking scared to throw. The guy you said was a warrior will go in and put on the line, refused to do so because Guillermo Rigondeaux neutralized that man. And if you know about boxing, you know that's not an easy thing to do. You know it's not. And instead of praising that, you want to push your agenda. Well, fuck you. How about that? Right? I don't give a shit. And I know they listen to shows like this.
Oh
Right?
yeah, that's where they get their education from, listening to shows like this.
Hey, you said the name AJ10. I'd say the name, bro. but um, but
Fact
that's
check.
it. Fact check. But here's my thing. Now they're doing this thing where they're saying, "Oh, he's too old. He can't fight it. You're crazy. He can't fight anyway." Okay, you guys are the ones saying want Rigo out of the sport, right? You're saying this dude's a monster. You see, you guys are talking like he's going to kill Rigondeaux. Then let's see it then. Rigondeaux says he's going monster hunting.
Listen, I'll offer this up here, D-Style, and it's not about a triangle theory, but it's about a professional skill theory.
Right.
Monster went life and death.
Life and death.
With what's his name?
We forgot his name already.
Donaire,
yeah.
Donaire, Nonito Donaire. Forgive me, but
yeah.
And guess who got taken to school by Rigondeaux?
He's got the bachelor degree on his wall, bro. Okay.
Yeah. Donaire was taken to school. Matter of fact, little side story here. On that night that he entered the ring against Rigondeaux, he came in wearing gold with the black stripes. That was his honor and homage to Bruce Lee for wearing the yellow and gold tracksuit in one of his movies Bruce Lee wore, right? He was a big Bruce Lee fan, blah, blah, blah. Well, he got his butt kicked that night by Rigo, okay? Now, here we go. The monster is out there, right?
Man, you can't play homage to Bruce Lee and get your ass whooped, bro. What's going on over here?
That's my point. And now the monster is coming out here, right? And the monster did away. He skirted past Donaire himself. But the master who taught Donaire some things, you don't think he'll have anything left in the bag for the monster? Oh, definitely. Because he doesn't have to stand there and try to trade with him. You understand?
People forget Donaire was monster in a way.
Exactly.
Okay. The boogeyman just switches names, guys. Okay. I remember I did a video once. There's no such thing as a boogeyman in boxing. Okay. But the boogeyman, it just, they just recycle the names. Donaire was a fighter of the year. Max Kellerman was out here telling everybody he's the best pound for pound in the sport. And you know what I mean? It's crazy. Oh, he is the heir to Pacquiao's throne and all this other shit that Bob Arum was saying, because Bob Arum also promoted Pacquiao at the time, and he wanted kind of that Filipino fan base to transition over to Donaire. Makes sense, but he was really pushing the narrative that this guy is the guy. Like we never seen a guy like Donaire, and I'm not shitting on Donaire. Donaire is a good fighter. Okay, at that time he was even a better fighter. All right. That was a washed up Donaire. And he gave, Inoue walked out of that fight, bro. Right? Did he see his face?
Bad.
The only thing he could say is, well, you should see the other guy's face. That's the only thing he could say. What else could he say? I never seen like Rigondeaux like that. Ever. And you could bring up the Lomachenko fight. Guys, there's a reason Lomachenko never even brings that fight up. All right? Lomachenko never even talks about, and I believe there is an interview out there. I just got to find it, of Lomachenko saying, yeah, I was too big for him. Right? So, the dude had to move up. He just made 118 at age 40, guys. What does that tell you? That's him moving down. All right? So that tells you a lot, but he says, he praised in a way, say he's a good fighter, I want to fight him, saying all the right things, right? And all that. And before I get to your thoughts, let me just read Drew Titan's comment. Make sure you guys subscribe to Drew Titan and his show, LWC Strong, I believe it's called. Make sure you check that out. All right. He says, understand Inoue is in the process of being manufactured in order to reach out to another fan base, but Nonito gave him hell while Rigo beat the breakout Donaire. Inoue is food for Rigo. Let me tell you something, man. They're already talking about how we shouldn't make this fight. Oh, you guys are crazy. Why would you want to put all of a sudden that they're concerned the health like I don't believe you guys. I don't believe the media out there. I don't believe you fans saying that you're concerned about the health of Rigondeaux. Get the fuck out of here. Okay? If Inoue is who he is, all right? If Inoue is who you guys say he is, first of all, he would have knocked out Donaire the way you guys said he was going to do. Okay? That's just that. But he's going monster hunting. That's what he said. He's going monster hunting. He says, I want Inoue. Everybody said, oh, nobody wants to fight Inoue. Rigo's like, what's with these Cuban fighters? They always raise their hands. You know what I mean? Hey, nobody wants to fight him, right? I will. Anybody? Anybody want to? I'll fight him. Ooh, me. Anybody? No? All right. He's getting ducked. But what are your thoughts, man?
Well, first, let me answer that about, they raise their hand and say, anybody want to fight this guy? Me, I do. You know why they do that? Because they are fully equipped to deal with various styles. They're taught properly in the sport. How many of those Cuban fighters do you see have to be reminded? Keep their hands up.
Nope.
Have that left hand hanging low or trying to do the shoulder roll bull crap that we talk about all the time.
Rigo in the 12th round, but he's doing that on purpose. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And also he was doing that tactically and strategically because he was so dialed in. He was waiting for the guy to do something so he can, attack and counter off of it. See, that's the difference. It wasn't like he was being reckless, dropping his hands. He was trying to bait the guy because he got the guy into a point of discomfort that he was apprehensive about doing anything. So his radar was on 10 and the other guy's desire to do something was on 2. You understand? So that's what that was about. And kudos to him as a 40-year-old fighter who could do something like that. And for those fools in the audience booing and everything, they didn't see or understand what they were looking at. But to get back to the fact that he wants and has called out the opportunity to take on Monster, that's what championship caliber fighters do. They want challenges in their lives. This is what keeps them going. He wouldn't be out here calling for a C-rated fighter to fight. He wants to fight the best. You guys say that guy is a monster. Put me in there with him, and I'll show you how much of a monster he's not. And that's the thing. That's what drives the sport. This is why you get behind a fighter like Rigo, because he's willing to test and challenge himself. He knew he wasn't supposed to go in there and fight Lomo under those conditions like that. It was a very difficult mountain for him to climb. And then people vilified him for checking out or whatever. The man was too big for him. But he still tried. Where are these other guys with their attempts? Nowhere. You understand? The only way that you can be measured as great is if you put yourself in a situation where there are threats, okay? There are trials. There are opportunities to prove yourself, to persevere, to overcome. If you don't do these things, you can't be equated with being great. They throw the word great around so much today that it's almost like average. You understand? Especially for those who they're calling great, because the output of greatness doesn't exist. I cannot call you great, and you've done absolutely nothing against anyone who was a threat to take what you have, and that's your position in the sport, away from you. And this is not even about being 50-50. This is about someone being a threat to take it away from you.
Right.
That means that you're not necessarily a favorite. You're a guy that's in there competing like they're competing against you. And we got to figure it out, because on paper is on paper, but in the ring is where it goes down. So it's like we have to see it. I can't give it to you without you having not performed it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Okay. Just a couple months ago, people were saying, hey, how about he fights Rigo? Rigo's too big. Okay, he's in the weight class. Well, Rigo moved down, right? He's like, I'll accommodate. Don't worry about it. I'll move down, right? How about now? All right. So let's do the fight. All right. Let's do the damn fight. All right. And 404 says Gamboa is the only one who comes to mind as an offensive first and defensively irresponsible at times, and it makes him exciting. Maybe Casamiro was more offensive than most Cuban fighters as well. Well, Casamiro also spent a lot of time in the pros and fought some stiff opposition, by the way. Gamboa inactivity, I think, did him in. You know what I mean? Gamboa actually fought a very good fight. He boxed a beautiful fight against Salido. He didn't slug it out with him or anything like that. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened with Gamboa, but yeah.
And he survived all those rounds with a blown out tire against Tank. I mean,
Right.
Who the hell does that? You got a blown Achilles. Take me to the hospital, man. I ain't thinking about fighting. You understand? This man was in there. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Let's think about this for one moment. Do you understand what type of mental shape he had to be in to go through that? We didn't even talk about the physical because you got a blown out Achilles. That's about the end of it right there. But the man went rounds, dude. What did he get stopped in the 10th or something? Dude, that says a lot about the man's and also in that fight, he was the aging fighter against Tank, right? What would have happened had they been closer in age?
Right. We don't know.
I will not crap on Gamboa because Gamboa is another fighter out there who is taking risks.
Yeah.
You know, he had poor promotional problems and everything earlier in his career, but the guy would come to fight, man. That's what you have to. Whatever happened to respecting the fighter, not these pretenders, man? And the sport is so full of the pretenders now. It's unbelievable.
Let me tell you something, okay? If that wasn't Gamboa, if that was, I don't know, if that was Donaire, right? If Donaire had fought Inoue with like a blown out Achilles, right? Yes, they would have said, oh man, good fight by Inoue. And my God, Donaire, this is why we love Donaire and such a warrior. And I'm not saying they wouldn't be right, but let's give Gamboa that same treatment. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but you're right. And let's not forget that, I mean, he also lost to, Crawford. Who hasn't lost to Crawford? Like what? You know what I mean?
There's another fighter, D-Style.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Gabriel Ruelas? Remember when the guy broke his elbow in that clinch?
Yeah.
He was in tremendous pain, but do you remember him trying to finish the fight? He wanted to continue to fight. Remember that?
Yep.
Dude, his elbow was literally dislodged from that clinch when that guy twisted his arm like that. And the kid continued to try to fight. And he suffered as a result of that going forward in his career out again, that arm. But that's
like, didn't Berto tear his, I think Berto tore like his bicep muscle in a fight too.
Yeah.
That's excruciating pain. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. So we're talking about real championship caliber fighters who endure adversity like that, and they keep plugging, man. It's like, and some of these guys, I don't know. But it's one of the reasons that we have to talk about it.
Absolutely. Those names out there. We'll see what happens with Rigondeaux, man. I want to see the Inoue fight. There ain't nobody. I mean, there was Neri, but I'm kind of like, I don't want to hear about Neri at 118. Okay, the dude can't even make the damn weight. He's missed it like 2 or 3 times. Okay, it's time for him to move up. Okay, like honestly, I think it's kind of embarrassing that that's the other thing. An old Rigondeaux, after not fighting that weight for I don't know how long, made the weight. Donaire made the weight. You know what I mean? We had gone back, but Neri is having trouble making the weight. I mean, but that's why, in case anybody's wondering, that's why I'm not bringing up Neri's name in this discussion. All right. Let's talk about Gary Russell Jr. against, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that dude's name, King Tug. All right. Here's what I said, man. I watched some film on King Tug. I checked out his last fight, a couple others, and I kind of stayed consistent with what I said. I said, look, the guy's well schooled, but he doesn't do anything crazy, right? Um, Pretty basic, but he's good at those basics. Pretty decent lateral movement. I'll give him that. Good jab. His right hand is pretty solid. I thought maybe against the southpaw like Gary Russell, he might utilize that to give him some trouble. Um, I mean, I don't want to pat myself in the back, but the fight went pretty much like I thought it would. You know what I mean? Like I thought he would be competitive with Russell, but Gary Russell was just too fast. He was going to be one step ahead of him. He was most of the time. Um, the size difference was something else, though. Like when I saw that fight, like, damn, this dude looks a lot bigger than Gary. So if Gary's going to move up, that was a pretty good opponent to have to prepare for the bigger guys. I don't subscribe to the notion that Gary should move up. There's a lot of hungry fighters out there. He just fought one, okay, that are just waiting for this shot that he could fight. King Tug did a little better, than I thought he would. But overall, if they fought 10 out of 10 times, Gary Russell would win 10 out of 10 times. This is what I came out of with this. But just two quick things. Round 9, he lands 2 body shots, right? And Showtime gives him the whole round. Right? Oh, what a round! Like ignoring everything Gary Russell did. Gary did lose round 10. That I will give them. But I think I gave this dude like 3 rounds in the fight, which means he was competitive in the fight. But I don't know how you saw that the fight, Stormy. Talk to us.
Well, I pretty much, I do try to score these fights now as I watch them. And I pretty much had the final scorecard tally with Russell Jr. running away like 117 to 111, something like that. I had very long, very much out front. But 2 things I want to say about things regarding the fight. Going in, I totally respected Nayambayar's ability to fight. And that's what I was, giving him credit for going in. He could fight, and we hadn't seen Russell in a scrape like that and with someone like this who could be a threat. But this is the part of Russell that I had not anticipated, and I gave him full credit in my post-fight coverage, was that, man, just like Rigondeaux boxed the shoes off of his opponent, Gary Russell Jr. boxed the shoes off of Nayambayar, and he stayed disciplined in it, and he made certain that he put the work in early that took the fight away from the guy. And the second part of my respect to Russell was in the later portion of the fight, when he pretty much had the fight in his hands, in the bag. He took to being aggressive and going after that and giving the crowd something to look at in the fight. So he didn't end it on a boring note. He let the guy get into a position of comfortability, but he had already beaten him because he showed that with what he was doing in the earlier 8 rounds, that Nayambayar didn't have an answer for that. He didn't have a jab, He could fight. If you stand there and fight with him, he'll knock you out. But that's not what Gary did. Gary circled him, gave him angles, gave him combinations, turned him. When he thought he had him near the ropes, he would escape out of there, switch the angle on him and get shots off. Beautiful boxing 101 against a guy who was limited with only punching power. He didn't have an arsenal of punches. He had an uppercut that was a good uppercut, but Gary even made certain that he didn't languish inside for that. So he took all of the man's weaknesses and magnified them in front of the entire audience watching. Now, they didn't boo that, and he did it with technical skill. It was just like Rigondeaux. In this instance, Gary he built his lead, and then he gave people a little bit of what they like to see, which was a little bit of tussle, but he was always in control. And my hat's off to him, because it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do what he did in the manner that he did, but it takes even more focus, because even when he took the fight to Nyambayar, he made certain that Nyambayar didn't get a lucky shot in. He put his high guard up, and he didn't just hold a high guard. He still gave angles. He still got his combinations off, and he made it look like the guy was in the fight, but he had taken the fight away from the guy. And I love that, because that's boxing IQ. And he still left the fans with something going toward the end, because you had some people say, well, Nyambayar almost got him. It was not near as close as that at all. He just gave the people something by securing the fight for himself early. And that was much respect to Gary Russell for doing that.
By the way, Gaines says Mares ducked Gonzalez rematch. That's how Gary won the featherweight title. Man, I was a big fan of Gonzalez, bro. Although I did expect Gary to beat him, I did not think he was going to beat him like that. Okay, but I saw Gonzalez a couple times. I saw him against Motagua here, and when he beat Mares, man, was that a big deal? But just thought about that. Callie says those were casual fans. Absolutely, they were. Remember the fight before was Slugfest? I believe you're Vélez out of it. The Vélez fight, right? Yeah. But I don't think we'll have enough time for that. But just as far as this fight, man, for Gary Russell Jr., the big question is what's next for him. I feel like I think it just depends on what Gary Russell wants. You know what I mean? It's I don't feel he should move up myself, but he's talking about moving up to 135. Like, you know what I mean? He's going two weight classes up. I think that's a little too much of a jump. You know what I mean? But I don't know what he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. But what do you think, Stormy? What do you think should be next for Gary Russell?
I don't think he should jump weight classes to prove himself. I think that he should start taking on some challenges of some up-and-comers, because, he's obviously the class at that weight. And for someone to want to prove themselves or whatever, all paths go through him. Now, if he wanted to dare to be great, then you could see him taking that challenge of moving up like that. Because remember, Shane Mosley did the same thing. He went from 135 to 147. He just jumped on up there with the big fish. And that's okay if he dares to be great. If he's chasing a payday, he shouldn't do that, because he's putting himself at a risk that it's not until you're in the ring with those guys that you realize what deficit you are battling, from. And so, but I believe all paths lead through him where he is. And if they want to talk about Shakur Stevenson, hey, he's got plenty to take. Shakur Stevenson is food for him right now. He has too much boxing IQ. He has too many skills that are still prime. And Shakur is still learning. And he's one of those guys that I speak about all the time. He is now a titleist with a title, but he hasn't fully learned how to fight yet. And I've yet to see Shakur get dinged right there on the button, because I do believe that flashiness and all of that, that's nice to look at. But when that something comes back and hits you right there, that's when you find out what you really have. And when the lights are on and the crowd is out there, you get dinged like that, you start worrying about, oh, my girlfriend saw me get hit. Oh, what am I going to do? Am I really hurt? All of these questions that run through your mind at 100 miles an hour when that happens, besides you being dizzy and wobbly, and you got a guy getting ready trying to finish you off. Hey, but Shakur hasn't gone through that yet. See, Gary suffered that loss to Lomachenko, and guess what? It's eating at him. He wants it back. He wants to get that back. That's what it's supposed to feel like. That's what it's supposed to feel like when you suffered, when you didn't overcome, when you didn't have a chance, well, you didn't take the opportunity to prevail, and you came up second or short. Now you know what it feels like. Now you know that, oh, I got to go back out there and get it. And even if you get the opportunity and it doesn't happen, the fact that you went through it in the first place means something. And you have so many of these fighters out here today that have not been tried and true tested. And that's one of the things. And I hang my hat on that all day long, because you can look sweet. That's just like shadow boxing in the mirror, right? You look good. You move.
Everybody looks good doing that.
Right? Uh-huh. But when they're coming back at you, brother, it's a whole different story.
It'll be interesting to see how Shakur Stevenson will respond to that hand speed of Gary Russell. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if he's ever in the pros anyway, been in a position where he's the slower guy with his hands. That's going to be very interesting.
Russell seems to have that hand speed that's reminiscent of a young Meldrick Taylor. You remember that? He's got the closest. That, yeah.
Yep. Gary Russell's hand speed is unreal. Okay. And when he puts his and not just the one like Ryan Garcia has that first quick, Viper-like snap punch, but his combinations aren't that fast. You know what I mean? Gary Russell, the whole combination is that fast. Like you said, like a Meldrick Taylor, where all you could do is kind of cover up and wait till he's done, like Chavez did, and then went for the body. Like, I'm going to slow you down one way or another. Okay? Like, goddamn. Like, are you out of gas yet? Goddamn. All right. Or Sugar Ray Leonard, guys would just cover up at times because they couldn't react that fast, So it'll be interesting, man. I think that's a hell of a fight. Somebody brought up Josh Warrington. Why not? You know what I mean? Kid Gallahan. Why the hell not? You know what I mean? So there is fights for Gary Russell. It's just that maybe it's not the fights that we were kind of paying attention to, but there's fights for him at that weight class, So
that's why I said he should just, stand pat, because they're there. Mm-hmm. And you know what? He can dictate terms because he's the man, right? Yep. He could dictate terms. He could say, I want it in my hometown, or I want it at this venue or whatever. And they have to buckle up because he's the man. See, if he wants to dare to be great, two things he could do this year, and we know he's been fighting only once a year. He could take on one of these young studs, right? And he'll be favored. He would, because he's been champ for, 5-6 years, something like that.
Yes.
And he beats that guy and then says, I'm going to take it on up here and challenge these guys. I want to prove my greatness. That's respectable.
Right.
But to just jump up there right now, it's like, okay, man, you had some unfinished business down there. You're not necessarily going to get Lomo because they're moving Lomo away from competition as it is. So
I just want to say this, though. Like, he was fighting once a year pretty much, but his last fight was just about 6-7 months ago. You know what I mean? Okay. So if that's a sign of things to come, like if he fights in another 6-7 months, you know what I mean?
Be great.
That'll be great. And I think people are leaving that part out. That people are acting like he fought like January, February last year or something. You know what I mean? He fought in late May, I believe. So hopefully he keeps it up, man. King Tug, right? Whatever. I can't pronounce his name. Nambayarar. Okay. That dude. Okay. Yeah. I think Showtime was like I get that there's 4 world titles and then there's a regular super champ and franchise champ and there's a lot of titles. I get all that, but I think they were just overstating. Oh man, this guy, he's definitely going to win a world title. I mean, this is a learning experience from. I think they overstated it. I don't think that's a guarantee at all. Actually, I don't know if he wins a world title.
There's no guarantee with him because he's going to have to show us that he can box, and right now he can't. He doesn't have the tools to box at the championship level. Right. He can fight at every level beneath championship level, and he'll knock guys out. Mm-hmm. But you could see against Russell, there were opportunities for him to do certain things to set himself up in a position to be more effective, and he didn't have that, which is what we did not see or know going into this fight, because his physical sheer presence was enough to make everyone he had fought up to this point fall into what he wanted. And that's to fight. You know, it kind of reminds me of Yuri Boy Compass. Remember Yuri Boy Compass? And he would search guys down. Huh?
I remember him, his flips and everything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he would search guys down kind of in the Chavez style with hooks and right hands, but he didn't have jabs or anything. So anybody who could box, they could set him up, you know, and that's kind of like Nyambayar. He doesn't have the technical savvy to compete at the championship level. And I had not seen enough of him to make that assessment. But by like round 4 of this fight, I was like, oh, he doesn't. In the corner, I didn't hear them telling him, stick the jab, stick the jab. He just didn't have the tools to compete with a good boxer.
And plus, I mean, Gary beat him in everything. He beat him in the ring. He beat him in the ring walk for sure. Right? I mean, and he beat him with the ice pack. You see that ice pack thing that they had over his? I'm like, I remember I was watching it and I had to like look again. And what the hell is that shit? I never see. Have you seen that before?
Yeah, there was another fighter from the 90s who used to use that. I forget who it is right now, but I'm sure it'll come to me after we go off air. But there were at least 2 other fighters who used an Answell mask on their face. The mask was made out of metal and contoured where you had eye slits, but the metal part underneath would be, you know, it like had, what do you call it? Perforated, so it'll touch on your eye spots where it needed to once they put it on your face. Very good idea, because what happens is in between rounds, they have it soaking in that ice bucket and it's metal. So it gets ice cold. So they bring it back and it cools down your whole head. I've seen it used before.
Oh man. I mean, I don't know how effective it is. I honestly don't know how effective it is in, like, if you have actual, like, real severe swelling. I think maybe the traditional way is a little better, but
it's contoured. You know, it's like there's a word for that. I can't think of it right now.
Do they mold his face on it or something?
Yeah, it's molded to your face. So if there's swelling, it will, you know, and then they also have what they call the knot blockers. It's just like a round piece of metal on a ring. You put it on your finger, and the corner man just rubs it around the eye, under the eye, around the cheekbone, on the side of the temple. Sometimes, you know, you see those guys get the knot on their temple, and they take that and they just push the with pressure. And
that's what I'm talking about, like those techniques when they have to kind of rub on it. I just think maybe that special detail that face.
Yeah, it would depend on what type of swelling you get, and you do also know that the swelling from the sinus cavities, if guys are blowing through their nose when they punch, you know, they breathe out, they exhale in the sinus cavities. If you have an irritation or even a blockage, it's going to blow your eye up, you know, even faster. So you have to be careful with how you breathe. You're supposed to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. But some fighters breathe out their nose while they're fighting because it might be bleeding a little bit and they just, you know, sniff out to get it. But that'll make the eyes swell faster.
Okay. Man, I'll tell you what, though. If it works, why the hell not? But and you won't forget to do a spot either.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool. I always like seeing something different being done, even some simple, like, this is why I like fights on Showtime. Like, they don't go to commercials. I like to hear what they're saying in the corner. Dude, Showtime actually like showed us the corners a little more in this fight. They were showing us like who's at ringside and like shit I don't care about. You know what I mean?
You know, that's the only thing that I really miss about HBO Championship Boxing was that they had great corner work with the microphones. You could always hear what was going on in the corners. And that goes back for many years. And that's sorely missed right now because more than the announcers calling fights and stuff, to hear both corners and what their cornermen are giving them to go back out to the next round and everything, dude, that stuff is priceless. Because sometimes you would not believe what you would hear come out of a cornerman's mouth. you know, and that's like, and if only Teddy Atlas was working today instead of then, we wouldn't hear about him, because it was the HBO mics in the corner when he was working with Michael Moore that got him famous. You understand? Because he was delivering all these soliloquies and crap like that, and they were like, "Oh, this is great stuff from Teddy Atlas," and you know, but none of that really amounted to anything with his fighters in particular. But
like
go ahead.
Well, you're trying to brought something up, and it's like, do not blow your nose in the middle of a fight. Look, I remember this was not a boxing fight, although I have seen it in boxing, but it was a big like USC pay-per-view. I don't remember what fight it was, but yes, it was Damian Maia and Anderson Silva, and Silva was peppering the shit out of him. You know what I mean? And he was swelling up, and I remember that they were in the corner, and a guy got like some, I don't know, tissues or something that told him to blow. So he blew. And I remember Joe Rogan was like, I don't know why the hell they just did that. Just watch his face swell up, and it did. He started swelling to the point, I don't know how he was seeing. You know what I mean? It's just interesting stuff that when you could see that happen. And I seen it, but not in world-class boxing. But I seen it like in some Friday night fights where I guess the corners didn't know what the fuck they were doing or something. And
listen, one corner famous for doing that, and one of the most famous heavyweight championship fights in history, Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. Mike Tyson, defensively, he was very skillful in being elusive, slipping punches and things like that. But he didn't have a good training camp going into that fight with Buster Douglas. And when Buster hit him in his right eye, and his right eye was swelling shut, they didn't even have an answell in his corner. They didn't carry one to the fight because they thought Mike would knock a guy out in 1 or 2 rounds. And then he had some type of allergy towards certain medicines that you can put on the eye. So it was like he was a duck in water at that point, because the eye was swelling up at such a frenetic pace. And Douglas was so accurate that he was hitting him round after round after round in that eye. Many people don't know this. But Mike Tyson, 6 to 8 months after the loss to Buster Douglas, still had blackening around the eye. And when he did TV interviews and everything, they would put makeup on it. That eye was messed up for a long time after his loss to Buster Douglas. And if they had had an answell, it wouldn't have been no problem. Because all you do with an answell is, like I said, it's that piece of metal. It can be shaped like a circle or an oval, and it's thick, about an inch and a half thick, has a ring on it. So you put it on your finger, and you take the metal and you press firmly and press the swelling away from the eye. You would just move it away from the eye, and it'll move it down, it'll move it back away from the eye. They had a damn glove, and they put ice water in the glove, and they held it up against Mike's eye. So a balloon, basically, a balloon against his eye, round after round, with cold water. Dude, that was not, they would have been better off taking an ice cube and using it against his eye. What the hell they were doing? I was like, Aaron Snow and Jay Bright, those guys, they are his buddies, but they don't know nothing about boxing. And sorry for Aaron Snow, because he worked in Don King camps for like 20 years.
Yeah, I think there was that. I'm trying to remember the interview. I know 78 did the interview. And I forget the name of the guy, but he used to work with Mike in his corner. I have to find the interview, but 78 will know where it is. But they actually did an interview with him, and he talks about I don't remember, it was like he was allergic to Vaseline or something like that. And they used it on Mike. You know what I mean?
It was something that he was allergic to that you couldn't put on, that they could have used in the corner, but they couldn't use it. But not having the sensibility to even take the largest piece of ice that you have and rub it against Mike's eye. Just take the ice cube.
How about this? Like, you think they would have been better off doing nothing to the eye?
No, you know what they could have done? If someone had a quarter in their pocket, I need a quarter. They got a quarter from somebody, ringside or whatever. You take 2 of them and you put that, because you got that tape, right? You put that tape on the edge of it, you stick it in that ice bucket, and when he comes back to the corner, you take that quarter and you rub it across Mike's eye. What are you doing? You a balloon of a plastic glove. You know, the gloves they put on so if you got blood on you, they holding it up against his eye like this, man. I'm like, I could not believe that when I was watching. It was ridiculous.
What? Wow, that is something. You guys are tuning in to Weekend Aftermath. This is D-Sal being joined by Stormy B-Man. Esto es boxeo. This is boxing. Tune into Aftermath every Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow I'll be live with Ashy Knuckles, a puncher's chance. He will be back. And special thanks to Cal Enigma for filling in last week. Make sure you throw a jab at that like button, right? And yes, you're tight. I think a cold soda can would have worked better.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. That would have worked fine.
The old-fashioned steak, probably. I don't know.
If you had, listen, it's something I'll tell you, D-Style. This lets you know that these guys don't know what they're doing. You could have taken someone who had a watch that, as long as it had a chrome or a metal bracelet to it, a watch, you could have taken that and used it. As long as you kept it in the ice between rounds, and you could use it to push that swelling away from his eye, because that's where Mike's problem was. When Buster knocked him out with that uppercut, he was dipping down underneath because he couldn't see, and he was trying to turn, and he got hit with that uppercut, and that was it. But again, these are the type. It's amazing, bro. It's like I've watched so much boxing. It's like I could be sitting at home and tell you what's going to happen before it happens because of the incompetency, man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that happened, and Tyson definitely shouldn't have lost that fight. But man, did the stars align perfectly for that fight? You know what I mean? Like, he was an inconsistent fighter, Douglas, but for that fight, like, he showed up. You know what I mean? And that's the issue when you're the man, when you're the champion. Like, people need to understand. Like, a lot of these dudes that are inconsistent, like they'll show up for that fight because they got something to prove. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But can I say something about that too,
sure.
D-Style?
Yep.
A lot of people, they say, well, Buster, his mom died and he was really motivated and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that is true. But Buster Douglas was a top 5 heavyweight then too. If you look at the rankings back then, he had beaten a lot of guys. He had beaten the guy on the undercard of Carla Truth Williams and Mike Tyson's fight, a guy named Mike Williams, who they were grooming for Tyson's next opponent after Carla Truth Williams. And Buster Douglas beat him up so badly and in the undercard and knocked him down several times with a jab and knocked him out, that it gave Buster the consideration for, because it wasn't a mandatory, but because Buster, he performed well, Don King gave him another shot. And no odds makers in Vegas or even in Jersey, they didn't want the fight. That's why the fight went to Tokyo. But if you saw Buster in his performance against Mike Williams, he beat the crap out of Mike Williams. And he was known for having quit against Tony Tucker, but he was beating Tony Tucker at the time that the fight was stopped. He was ahead on the scorecards. He just stopped fighting for whatever reason. He never explained that. He never told anybody why he quit. But I think it has something to do with him and his dad. It was something going on between him and his dad. A quitter, but he never fought like a quitter.
I'm sorry, you cut off
Oliver McCall.
You cut off there for a moment. What you cut off after you said
he was labeled a quitter after that fight with Tony Tucker, but he was never a quitter like that. It was like something between him and his dad. But he fought other fighters like Trevor Berbick, beat the crap out of him. He fought he fought Oliver McCall in a tough, grueling fight. They were hitting each other like they owed each other money or something. And he beat the crap out of Oliver McCall. And everybody knew that when Tyson first became undisputed champion, Oliver McCall was his number 1 sparring partner. And the only reason he was number 1 is because he could take everything Mike had and give back. So he was a real tough man. And Buster beat these guys. So when he got in there with Tyson, I knew at 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds, good hand speed, good pop on his punches, great jab like Larry Holmes had when he was young. Tyson was going to be in for a fight. But what made the fight even more eerie was being in Tokyo. The Tokyo audience just kind of watched. It was like Buster's whooping Mike's ass and everybody's just sitting there in silence. Had that fight been in the U.S. with those type of results, people would have lost their mind, man.
Yeah, it's just Japanese custom. You know what I mean? It's a little different now, but back in those, it doesn't mean they weren't enjoying the fight. It's just what they did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just they've been watching two dudes fight there, like, in their culture for a long time. You know what I mean? But I'm sure in their mind they're like, holy shit, like this dude Mike Tyson getting his ass whooped. But they were just like quiet about it.
And he was opening up that new arena too. That was like a new arena for sports, athletics, and concerts and stuff. And it was quiet as a mouse in there. You could actually, if you had been sitting in the audience while the fight going on and go, whoop his ass, people could hear you on the mics on TV. It was that quiet. They
would have been like, shh. You know, like in the theater, like shh, watching the fight. Shh.
Hey, but one last thing. Big Dog Willie asked the question. He says, why medal Stormy B-Man for the Enswell? That's because metal has the ingredients in it to absorb cold, okay, and hold it. So when you use a Enswell against flesh swelling on the surface of your skin or whatever, it can immediately bond to that and help move it away from the area of crisis. So it's like that's one of the things. And back in the days, like I said, they used to use a silver dollar and stuff like that until modern sports, you know, they say, hey, we'll make a device, you know, out of metal. So, and then they put it like a loop on it for like a ring to slip over your finger to make it very convenient.
Yeah.
You can go to sports stores and get Answells now, but they didn't have them. You know, if you go back to, I want to say the early 70s.
Right.
So, but that's why metal.
Well said. I mean, to be honest with you, they should probably have those like in first aid kits. They probably do, but I don't know. Somebody hits themselves and use it on them. I don't know, something like that. The long count, Mike having sex until fight night, fired his corner. Everything lined up for Buster. Plus, Buster had great size over Tyson, and the jab was working wonders. Yeah, the stars aligned perfectly. You know what I mean? Without a shout out. And Red Jones, when she was old enough to bet on that Douglas fight, dude, I know so many people that swear they had Douglas winning before. You know, like they thought he would win. Man,
I could tell you the consensus of everything that I know back then. People were expecting Mike to beat the guy. And even myself had Mike favored, you know, because Mike was the champ and he had looked so dominant in some performances. You know, the Carl the Truth Williams fight, ironically, ended in 91 seconds or 92 seconds, just like the Spinks fight ended in 90 seconds. So it's like it was hard to judge anything off of that. We just knew that Mike was quick enough to get his punches to the other guy's chin. But against Buster Douglas, after 2 rounds, I was like, this ain't going to be easy for him. And I was watching the fight with one of my buddies from work. And boy, we was cheering for Buster Douglas after like 6 rounds. We were cheering for him because it was like the first time we had ever seen anybody really competing with him, fighting him, not hugging, holding on, you know, clinching and stuff. They were like, you know, it was a fight. Now, I do believe had Kevin Rooney been in his corner, he could have pulled him through that fight. But Kevin Rooney wasn't there.
Kevin Rooney was not there. All right. With that said, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about 2 punishments that are a joke, but let's talk about this one first. Alejandra Jimenez, right? Got a 90-day suspension. 90 days, bro. I mean, this is laughable. They did overturn the decision, which is good. Okay. And in fairness, they are saying that they're still kind of investigating and whatever. But well, what are your thoughts on this 90-day suspension?
Did they say, and I'm asking this question, I know what but did they say what they were suspending this fighter for?
I mean, I'm assuming it's because failed the drug test.
Right. But
Right.
see, I can assume that too. You can assume it, but that's not what I'm saying. Did they say, was there a statement that was brought about? And I'm going somewhere with this question that I'm asking, because this is what I wanted to say in follow-up. Because if they said what they were suspending this fighter for, then they have to find a way to explain to me why, and the punishment being able to mete out what the crime was. Because Ivan Ratcatch was fined his entire purse and $10,000 for biting Danny Garcia in their fight, which it was in like a Mike Tyson when bit Holyfield's ear off, but he just bit him on the shoulder, and it didn't look like a real sink your teeth into your bite. It just kind of.
You ever show the bite marks or anything like that?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the severe punishment behind it. Okay, now if this person was suspended because they had testosterone in their body or whatever, and that's considered along the lines of banned substances, it's considered, it could be looked at toward cheating and things like that. Where is the severity of punishment? If you just want to punish somebody for 90 days, then Ivan Ratcatch should not be fined. I think he's suspended for a year. They took his purse and then fined him $10,000. No, man, that's like, the scales of justice are very unequal there.
So let me kind of go over this really quick. So this was from a January 10th testing sample. Source here is Boxing Scene, for anybody wondering. So January 10th testing sample by VADA was done. Okay, and the adverse findings of a banned substance, stanozol, on Jimenez's sample. Now, if anybody in the chat or even you, Stormy, know specifically what that is and knows better than me, I would like to know. But that's what she tested positive for. And apparently the results were not learned until January 24th, 14 days after the sample. Okay, which is okay. But then obviously she popped dirty. And this is actually the Texas Commission that did the suspension, not the what is it, the WBO or whatever title she had, WBC? Both. It's actually both, I guess. So this is the Texas Commission, and they're basically saying she's suspended for 90 days. We're overturning the decision while the investigation is ongoing. So in fairness, it is possible that WBC or whatever comes out and gives a harsher suspension. I don't know how that's going to work, but 90 days is a joke. I mean, there's no way around that. If fighters know, well, if I get caught, like I'll be suspended for 90 days.
But see, the fact that you're also looking at someone who blatantly appears to be transitioning, okay?
Right.
If you're transitioning, you should be vying for trying to fight with men.
Right.
Seriously. Because you are putting yourself at a means of physicality that women have a limitation, okay? And so if you want me to say that you're a woman, but you appear to be in your personal life transitioning, that means that you want to be identified as a man, actually. And here we are in competitive sports. You should want to be competing on the side of men because you're transitioning to a man. It's just like a man who's transitioning to a woman. Right. He can't look at, I want to fight women, because he's biologically a man. But this is a woman who's trying to transition to a man. So it's like you're putting the things inside your body that are going to be banned in the sport
You
because
guys
it's
are crazy about
testosterone. Huh?
the
Yeah.
chat is acting crazy. Go ahead, Stormy.
Yeah. It's but it's like you can't really get the respect and perform in the sport because you're breaking the rules, you know. And I'm sorry, you know, if you got junk, you need to be going to the men's room, you know. If you don't, you can go take a seat in the ladies' room.
Right.
But I mean, you can't play it both ways and have something benefit you. Yes, the title should have been taken away. And the fact that they did reverse that and took the titles away means that they have identified that something is wrong, but it should not
Look,
stop there.
I want to make sure people understand and listen to me very, very closely. Okay. Honestly, I don't give a shit what people do in their own life. I just don't. However, once you're competing in a sport, right? Once you are competing in a sport with several, like, where it's affecting other people, right? Like boxing, right? Once you're doing that, there is a problem. Okay, in sports, obviously, we're trying to establish a hierarchy and who's better, rank them, da, 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 and all that, right? That's what we're trying to do in sports. Now, when a biological man, right, decides for whatever reason, whatever personal reasons, I want to be a woman, right? Once they do that, I don't care how much estrogen they take. I don't care how much through the process they've gone, all right? I don't care how they feel on the inside and all that. At the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, like they're still physically a man. You know, even they even say it themselves. I'm a woman trapped inside a man's body. While the body is still a man. Right? That's not changing. So that period. That's not debatable. So when you start saying, oh, let's let them fight women, I have a problem with that. Right? Let's let them compete against women in track and field. You think it's just a coincidence that they're beating women in wrestling and in high school and track and field, and you think it's just a coincidence that they're dominating the sports? Like, you think it's just a coincidence? It's not. And it's not fair to women just on the surface. And also because if you reverse it, right, a woman can take all the testosterone she wants and this and that and you know, whatever she wants, okay? She ain't ever going to be able to compete with men. Like period. All right? Like it's not going to be an issue. All right? It's still going to be unfair to her even with all that. So this is my issue, right? Now, in the case of Alejandra Jimenez, even if you want to say, nah, y'all crazy, she's 100% a woman, and she just, but at the end of the day, she just got caught. She just got caught, guys. Obviously, the people that have been watching this shit for a long time and said, yeah, she's on some, were right. Okay, I guess we were onto something. Don't you think? Don't you think like we were onto it and we were proven right? And then they're giving her 10 extra days to come up with an explanation. What are your thoughts on that, servant? Hey, we're going to give you some time. You know, go home, figure it out, talk to your people. We'll come back in 10 days and see what's going on.
What's that, a makeup test? Like, you know, when you failed the test and they trying to let you pass in school and it's like, we'll let you go home. I'll give you some of the answers too. How about that? No, man. It's like people like this enjoying the privilege of other things because there is an agenda to open the floodgates for perversion. Okay. Simply put, uh, when you're cheating, you're cheating. That's as simple as it goes. But I want to see cheaters punished for their actions. Now, Red Catch biting Garcia's shoulder, if that was worth being suspended for a year, having your purse revoked, and then being fined $10,000 on top of that, where is the punishment for someone cheating? Because you have illegal substances in your body and they are known to enhance, so you could hurt the opponent more than what you would naturally bring. So where's the punishment for that? Someone literally has to die from someone cheating on the spot for them to say, oh my God, now they're going to overreact and throw a person in jail and stuff like that, when you could have stopped this because you had opportunities. 90 days is nothing. She wasn't going to fight for another 90 days anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what the hell? And that's in the women's and men's. It's like you're going to punish somebody for just a couple of months. They'll be back anyway.
Dude, that's like YouTube banning, like after this show, banning me for like 5 hours. You know what I mean? Like, they style, you're banned. For the next 5 hours, you can't do any videos. Dude,
see you tomorrow night.
Stormy, you can't do videos until tomorrow, bro. You're banned for the rest of the day. All right? How about that? Would that affect you in some way?
But that's exactly what it is. You couldn't have put it more plainer, man. That's what it is. And like I said, if what Red Catch did,
we're not condoning what he did, by the way, for anyone else.
Exactly. But we're trying to equate why is one punishment so severe and another is not? You know, it's like, okay, you were in a club, you grabbed the chick's butt, right? And she reported you, oh, he sexually assaulted me. They want to give you 30 days in jail. But then the same chick went outside and some dude pulled her into the alley and raped. Oh, sorry.
Sexually assaulted.
Sexually assaulted. And then that person gets like 2 weeks or something. It's like, okay, you want to know where the scales of justice are. And we're not seeing that. Red Catch, what he did was, it was like stupid behavior. It was like idiotic behavior. And you could even see, like, he wasn't trying to be vicious he was just doing something because he's losing and he's like, but we have seen people literally pound someone below the belt, like with evil intent, trying to do something. And then the judge just take a point. But that guy, he could have a ruptured something down there. And he's like, it's a threat to him having children or whatever. Where is the justice? I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair when you see that someone in there can actually, it could be the end of them. And someone who's been enhanced can gain victory or whatever at your life's expense.
Well, this is crazy, man. I mean, it's a bunch of bullshit, bro. Okay. Now I want to get to something, believe it or not, even more serious than this. All right. Shout out to EJ Boxing Live, by the way. He did an interview with Ali Bashir. Okay. Make sure you guys check that out. For those that don't know, this is the, a trainer that was assaulted by Clarissa Shields' brother. Okay. The name is Artis Mack. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor assault. Right. You listen to the interview yourself, Stormy. He revealed that he can't even fly because of complications, and his doctor is not giving him the go ahead to do that. And And it looks to me here like they gave this guy like a slap in the wrist. When one, this is not his first issue. He has a history. He was out on parole from all understandings. I remember I did a video with EJ and we kind of looked up the guy's past, and he had a lot of. This guy probably shouldn't even been in the streets, but the fact that he was and he committed this assault, and then they do a plea deal. Bashir himself says they never contacted me about any plea deal or anything like that. I don't know the laws in that state or anything, so I can't really dive too much into that. But just overall, well, what are your thoughts?
Man, wow. Listening to the gentleman, Coach Bashir, explain his injuries alone, it made me cringe, bro. I mean, I didn't realize the severity of his injuries and the damage that has been caused to him. The man could literally be a walking time bomb to drop dead because of his injuries. And to even think about this in the sense of how he explained it, because the guy has copped a plea that he's probably going to get a very minimum sentencing or whatever behind this, when Coach Bashir is probably going to have to deal with his injuries for the rest of his life. That's scary. That's very scary. And to, like I said, shout out to EJ Live Boxing, Boxing Live, I'm sorry, and him doing that live interview this evening where we could hear it straight from the coach. It's the first time I had heard him say anything since the terrible incident, and he is incredulous. He wants to see the man prosecuted to the full extent of the law. He feels that he was straight blindsided, and that the fact that when you look into the background of the assailant, he should not have been present, in particular around something like this type of event. And everything is like taking a wild pit bull into a crowd of people and taking the leash off of him. That's kind of what that was like, because the pit bull is going to single out somebody he wants to go after, and that's what he's going to do. And there's not going to be a lot people can do about it, which was what we saw here. The fact that he has, said that he did this and confessed or whatever, and he's turning himself in, like, not turning himself in, but like, putting himself at the mercy of the court or whatever. That doesn't change how he's altered somebody's life, and how important it is to recognize that. And then how about this? Mr. Bashir, for whatever he's done with his life and career and things like that, he's a senior, bro. He's a senior. So are you trying to tell us that in our judicial system that you cannot protect our seniors? Hell, I'm a granddad now, and I ain't too far from being a senior. So somebody can just harm me or my loved ones and not be penalized for it just because they say I did it. There's something to be said, man. And I would plead to everyone who's out here in the chat, the people who are watching that are not participating in the chat, to please go and listen to the gentleman talk about this himself. He said he had never been in so much pain in his life. They had to peel his gums back to take his teeth from being extracted in the upper portion of his mouth, and then remove the teeth and then pull the gums back. That's something that sounds like when you're in a car accident, or something like that. It's horrible. And this man fell blindly to the floor, a marble floor. He's not a relative of mine. I don't know him personally, but I feel it. I feel it. It's like, who does this? And where is the outcry? Because as he said, had this been at the event and it had been Jim Lampley or Larry Merchant or any of those guys, it could be Max Kellerman or Paulie Malignaggi, okay? If it happened to one of those, you wouldn't have never heard the end of it on the media. You wouldn't have never heard the end of what a horrible creature this person was who committed this crime. You wouldn't hear the end of the fact that justice must prevail and people campaigning, starting GoFundMe's and all of this kind of stuff. But he said because it was two people of color involved, it's looked at, okay, that's what they do. How disrespectful. Because he did not antagonize the situation. It was someone looking for an opportunity in a situation that didn't have anything to do with the promotion, the event, or anything. They just happened to be related to someone there at the event and everything, and decided to show out at the party like some fools do on an everyday basis, where people lose their lives and lives are on the line because someone wants to do something in retaliation or something happened and things like that. We see it on an everyday basis. And this man was in a position to do his job professionally, and they were trying to obstruct that too. And then he became a victim. And he's a senior. Whatever happened to having respect? I'm telling you, man, it is a horrible situation. Like I said, he's going to have to deal with this the rest of his life. He said that he has bleeding spells from the roof of his mouth sometime, and it comes from nowhere. He talks and he tastes blood in his mouth. It's a horrible, horrible situation.
Shout out to Afro Rican G. I appreciate the support, bro. Look, do you remember the whole? I remember they haven't really talked much about it lately, but I remember the media was going crazy for that. Remember the knockout game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So a bunch of kids were fighting like for the most part, people will target the elderly because they're the easiest targets. Okay,
Yeah.
which to me that shows coward that you're a coward, right? Just like the shooter here in Walmart, right? Most of the people he killed, unfortunately, were elderly and kids, right? Because those are just the easiest targets. They don't move as fast, etc. But yes, we do have to protect our elderly, and yes, we do have to respect our elders. All right. I mean, that should go without saying. And the reason I bring up the knockout game is because, man, they're going to, and I'm not even saying they shouldn't have talked about it, but they're going to stop talking about it. Right. I mean, you would have thought it was an epidemic. It wasn't an epidemic. I'm not saying it wasn't a problem. It was happening, but it wasn't an epidemic. It wasn't like happening all over the place. Right. But Ali Bashir was literally assaulted in a very similar manner. He was sucker punched, right? And in that sucker punch, dude, you have intent, right? For all the people talking about, by the way, for all the people talking about how like they used the whole because he got in a verbal altercation with the sister. They used that like if that proves the innocence of the other dude. No, it actually proves intent. What it does. It actually proves, not only that you hit him, it wasn't just some random thing off the cuff. You intended to do it and you seeked out to do it and you did it from behind like a coward on top of that. Not that doing it in front of his face would have made the situation, that much better, but just to add to it, right? And you really don't see a lot of this discussed, right? I mean, it's unbelievable to me how it was kind of swept under the rug because, yes, you're right. If this was Teddy Atlas that got knocked out from behind, right? I would have had the same reaction. I would have said the dude that did it is a piece of shit. But most people are not having the same reaction. Like, I know how most people would have reacted, right? And it's nowhere. I don't see anywhere near the outrage. But let's leave all that aside. And many of them do, like, it's channels here, boxing channels on YouTube, that were totally okay with it. Talking to me about the streets. They're like, oh, in the streets, this is how we get down. You don't open, if you open your mouth in the streets, then hey, you got coming whatever you have coming, and this, that, and the third. One, they weren't in the streets. Okay, that's number one. Okay, they were at a boxing event. Okay, at a weigh-in. Right, that's. I want to make sure people understand that. Right. Second, dude, I don't give a shit. Okay, first of all, I don't know what streets you're talking about. Right. Most streets I know, you don't attack elderly people. Right. But I don't give a shit. You know how many times I've gone to Walmart and maybe I'm in a rush, so I kind of, when I'm moving the car, I kind of get in front of the senior and they say something to me, like careful, young man, or like whatever, right? What am I going to do? Turn around and be like, you talking shit, old man? What? Like, you think I'm going to do that or something? You think it makes you some tough guy? Because you're like, so what? A lot of elderly people they're the elders, right? They're not always right, but it's easy. Listen to what they have to say or walk away. They ain't going to do anything to you. What if an old man going to do to you? Are you going to die or some shit? What is he going to do to you? First of all, the altercation was over. That's number one. For anybody saying he threatened the sister, the altercation was over. They were separated. The sister was over there screaming and yelling. Okay, getting ready for a fight with Jimenez and all that. Okay? That's what she was doing. All right? And Ali Bashir was still talking shit, but sitting down. Okay, the last video footage we have from Fight Hype, and saying, oh, man, I knock her out, this, that, and the third. But he's talking in the sense of, if she wants to fight me, I will knock her out. It's not that complicated. And then you guys use that to justify a sucker punch from behind and try to insinuate that he has something to grow from this and all this other nonsense, right? Ali Bashir has nothing to apologize for. Zero. Okay? He was the victim. He was the one attacked from behind. He's the elderly man. The coward that was on parole that had no business in the fucking streets is the one that attacked him. You have any final words on this, Stormy?
Only if the rap sheet could be posted of what this guy had done prior to understand why we're saying that he shouldn't have even been on the streets publicly. It's like, this is a person, there was a label and a film that came out under the same title back in the early 90s called Menace to Society. That's what people like this are. They are a menace to society, because in an area where your quality of life is put in danger, when someone here can't be disciplined and perform in a disciplined manner, that they are reckless enough to set fires, arson, and mugging people and attacking people. Forgive me, my nose is running. I'm catching a cold. And these situations that they find themselves in and out of the hands of the law, because they're a threat to society. And then when they get away with doing something like this, or get a slap on the wrist, you understand that our system is broken. It's telling us that it's okay for someone to lose their discipline, and it's okay for you to possibly lose your freedom or your life being a victim of people like this. I mean, there's just no place for it. And until the communities begin to stand and call for more strict, discipline of disciplinary action of crimes such as this, if you can't protect our children, and if you can't protect our seniors, what are we going to do?
Right. And if you guys honestly believe that a senior running his mouth at you gives you reason to punch him in the face, like if you honestly believe that, you're a piece of shit. Like there's no other way around it. I'm just telling you guys right now. And then on top of that, to punch him from behind. You know what I mean? Like when they're not looking. You know, and Drew Tyne says, the dude is a cruel criminal, and it showed. But they made her try to treat Carissa as if she authorized the hit. Well, she didn't. I mean, that's true. You know what I mean? She's not the one that like did it. And in that same interview, by the way, Bashir did mention that Claire Shield did visit him a couple times. So, you know what I mean? Well, I mean, we could separate those two things, but the brother definitely, you know. I'm just saying, bro, that there was no need for that. Ronald Finkley, what's going on, man? I appreciate that. With that said, you guys did tune in to Aftermath here with Stormy B-Man and D-Style Boxing. Esto es boxeo. This is boxing. Join us every Monday, right? 10 p.m. Eastern time. Stormy, you have any final words?
Oh man, this was a great boxing talk, man. I enjoyed being on here. Sorry to miss our other brothers, Reggie Owens and G Funky 84, but they were out there in the chat. Appreciate you having me on, man. And anytime you need me to come on and give a little support and give an extra voice, I am there for you, brother. I appreciate it. And salute to everybody out there, and catch me on the Stormy B-Man channel. If you haven't subscribed, please take a moment out and subscribe. There's good boxing content over there for you. Got the Friday night chop session, got the In the Eye of the Storm. We've got the Three Wise Men of Boxing. And tomorrow evening, just before D-Style, we got the Tuesday Tussle.
Well, there you go. Monday, Aftermath. Tuesday, Puncher's Chance. Wednesday, it's going to be Hispanics causing panics with G-Funk. And Thursday, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens. This has been Aftermath with Stormy B-Man. We will catch you on the next one. This is D-Style Boxing. What do we say?
Keep it boxing.
We're out. Peace.
Peace.